Your tomatoes are dying. Again, you watered them yesterday. You watered them this morning. But it's 95 degrees outside, and they're wilting like they haven't seen water in a month. Meanwhile, 4,000 years ago, farmers in the desert were growing crops with a fraction of the water you're using and almost zero maintenance. How? They buried clay pots in the ground and let physics do the rest. Stick around, because this ancient irrigation trick is about to save you hours of work and hundreds of gallons of water. This system is called Ollas, pronounced Ollas if you want to sound like you know what you're talking about. It's Spanish for pots, which makes sense, because that's exactly what they are. Unglazed clay pots, buried in the soil with just the neck sticking out. You fill them with water, and the water seeps through the porous clay directly to plant roots. Slowly, efficiently, without you having to do anything for days or even weeks. The concept is stupid simple, which is why it's lasted 4 millennia. But here's what makes it genius. Traditional watering. Whether you're using a hose, a sprinkler, or a watering can, you're dumping water on top of the soil. Most of that water evaporates before it reaches the roots, especially in hot weather. You could be losing 50 to 70% of your water to evaporation. That's not just wasteful, it's expensive. Your water bill knows. With Ollas, the water goes directly where plants need it. Underground, at root level, zero evaporation, zero runoff, zero water hitting leaves, and encouraging fungal diseases. The plants get exactly what they need, when they need it, through a process called soil moisture tension. Let me explain that without putting you to sleep. Plants drink water through their roots. When the soil around those roots gets dry, it creates tension. It's literally pulling water from wherever it can find it. An olla, being porous clay, responds to that tension. Dry soil pulls water through the clay walls. Wet soil doesn't. So the system self-regulates. Plants take what they need. The rest stays in the olla waiting. You can't overwater. You can't underwater. The plants are in control, not you. This is how people in ancient Persia, North Africa, and parts of China were farming in deserts. These regions get maybe 10 inches of rain per year. 10 inches. Phoenix, Arizona gets 8 inches a year, and we think that's dry. These ancient farmers were producing food in those conditions because they understood something we've forgotten in our obsession with sprinkler systems and drip irrigation. Sometimes the old way is the better way. Now, before you think this is some hippy-dippy back-to-the-earth nonsense, let's talk about the actual data. Studies from New Mexico State University, proper academic research, showed that gardens using ollas used 50 to 70% less water than gardens with conventional irrigation. Same crops. Same yield. Half the water. In some cases, the yields were actually higher because the plants weren't stressed from inconsistent watering. Another study in Pakistan, where they were testing this for drought-prone regions, found similar results. 60% water savings, faster plant growth, higher fruit production. And here's the kicker. Reduced labor costs because farmers weren't spending hours every day watering. They were filling ollas once a week and walking away. Let's talk about how you actually use these things. You've got options. You can buy ollas commercially. Plenty of companies make them now. Or you can make your own. 2 terracotta pots, some waterproof adhesive, and 20 minutes of your time. We'll get to that. Size matters with ollas. A small one, maybe half a gallon, waters about a 3-foot radius. A larger one, 2 or 3 gallons, can handle 5 or 6 feet. You bury them so just the neck sticks out. Fill them with water and cover the opening so debris doesn't fall in and mosquitoes don't move in. That's it. That's the whole system. Where you place them depends on what you're growing. For a vegetable garden with plants in rows, bury an olla every 4 to 6 feet. For container gardens or raised beds, 1 olla per bed is usually enough. For trees and shrubs, you want bigger ollas closer to the trunk. The roots will find the water. They always do. Roots are surprisingly good at their job when you let them work naturally. Here's what happens after you bury an olla and fill it. The water starts seeping through the clay walls immediately. Not fast, not like a leak. Slow, steady. The soil around the olla gets moist first. Then that moisture spreads outward. Plant roots, which are constantly searching for water, grow toward the olla. Within a couple weeks, you'll have a network of roots surrounding it. The plants essentially hook themselves up to their own personal water supply. You check the olla every few days, top it off when it's low. How often you need to refill depends on your soil, your climate, and what you're growing. So ollas empty quicker. Clay soil holds moisture, so ollas last longer. Hot, dry climates obviously use more water than cool, humid ones. But generally, you're looking at refilling once a week, maybe twice in peak summer heat. Compare that to conventional watering. Depending on your climate and what you're growing, you might be watering every day, twice a day if it's really hot. That's 14 times a week versus 1 or 2. The time savings alone make this worth it. But there's more. Consistent soil moisture changes how plants grow. When you water conventionally, you're creating a wet-dry cycle. Soil is wet. Wait a day or two, soil dries out. Water again. Wet. Dry. Wet. Dry. Plants hate this. It stresses them out. They don't know if they should focus on growing roots to find water or growing leaves and fruit. So they do neither efficiently. With ollas, the soil stays consistently moist. Not wet, not dry, moist. That's the sweet spot. Plants can focus all their energy on growth and production instead of survival. You get bigger plants, more fruit, healthier root systems. I've seen tomatoes grown with ollas that produce 30% more fruit than identical plants watered conventionally. Same variety, same soil, same fertilizer. Here's something else nobody talks about. Weeds. Conventional watering, you're wetting the entire surface of your garden. Know what loves surface water? Weed seeds. They germinate like crazy when you keep the top inch of soil moist. With ollas, the surface stays relatively dry. Water is going down to the roots, not hanging out on top. Weed seeds don't germinate as easily. You end up with fewer weeds without doing anything different. Less weeding, more time for actual gardening. Lots of plant diseases, especially fungal ones. Love moisture on leaves. Powdery mildew, early blight, septoria leaf spot, all encouraged by wet foliage. When you water from above, you're splashing soil onto leaves and keeping them wet. Perfect conditions for disease. Ollas keep the water underground. Leaves stay dry. Disease pressure drops significantly. I've talked to gardeners who stopped losing tomatoes to blight after switching to ollas. Same garden, same plants, different watering method. Let's talk about making your own ollas, because this is where it gets really practical. You need 2 terracotta pots, same size. Terracotta, the unglazed orange clay kind. Water can't seep through. Terracotta is porous. That's the whole point. You also need waterproof sealant. Silicone, epoxy, something that won't break down in soil and won't leach chemicals. And you need something to plug the drainage holes. A wine cork works great. A rubber stopper. Even a glob of sealant. Here's how you do it. Take 1 pot and plug the drainage hole with your cork or sealant. This is the bottom pot. Let the sealant cure completely. Take the second pot and leave the drainage hole open. This is the top pot. Apply sealant around the rim of the bottom pot. Flip the top pot upside down and press the rims together. The drainage hole of the top pot is now the opening of your olla. Let the sealant cure for at least 24 hours. You want that seal waterproof. Test it before you bury it. Fill it with water and let it sit for an hour. Check for leaks. If it's leaking from the seam, you need more sealant. If it's weeping from the clay walls, that's perfect. That's exactly what you want. Dig a hole, bury it, so just the opening sticks out. Fill it with water, and you're in business. Cost breakdown: 2 6-inch terracotta pots run about $4 each at most garden centers. Sealant is maybe $5 for a tube that'll do multiple ollas. A cork is basically free if you drink wine. So you're at $15 tops for a DIY olla. Commercially made ones start at $25 and go up from there. Same functionality, but you're paying for convenience and sometimes nicer finishes. The size you make depends on what you need. Small pots, 4 to 6 inches, are great for containers and small garden beds. Medium pots, 8 to 10 inches, handle most vegetable gardens. Large pots, 12 inches and up, work for bigger gardens or around trees and shrubs. I've seen people make massive ollas from terracotta strawberry pots. Those things hold 3 gallons and can water a huge area. Now let's talk about what works well with ollas and what doesn't. Most vegetables love ollas. Tomatoes, peppers, squash, cucumbers, beans, anything with a decent root system. They do fantastic. Lettuce and other shallow-rooted greens can work, but you need to bury the olla shallow so moisture reaches their roots. Carrots, radishes, other root vegetables. They work great because they grow down toward the water source. Potatoes are interesting. You can use ollas, but you need to place them carefully. Potatoes grow in multiple directions from the seed potato. You want the olla centered, so all the growing tubers have access to moisture. I've seen people use one olla per hill of potatoes with good results. Trees and shrubs absolutely benefit from ollas. Newly planted trees especially. The first couple years, trees need consistent moisture to establish roots. Ollas provide that without you having to drag a hose around. Fruit trees, ornamental trees, even shrubs like blueberries and roses. Bury a large olla near the base, keep it filled, and the tree does the rest. Containers are maybe the best use case for ollas. Container soil dries out fast. You're often watering containers daily in summer. Bury a small olla in the center of your container, and you're down to once or twice a week. I've seen people go on week-long vacations with ollas in their containers and come home to healthy plants. Try that with conventional watering. The plants you might not use ollas for are ones that like it dry. Lavender, rosemary, most Mediterranean herbs. Ollas keep soil consistently moist, which these plants interpret as overwatering. They get root rot. They get leggy. They don't produce good flavor. For these plants, stick with conventional watering where you control the wet-dry cycle. Cacti and succulents. Same deal. They want to dry out completely. An olla would keep them too moist. But honestly, if you're growing cacti, you're barely watering anyway. Not really the target audience for water-saving irrigation. Here's a question people always ask. Do ollas work in winter? Depends on your climate. If you're in a region where the ground freezes, you need to pull your ollas out before the first hard freeze. Water in the clay will freeze and expand, cracking the pot. Not salvageable once that happens. In milder climates where you garden year-round, ollas work fine in winter. They actually work better because evaporation rates are lower, and plants need less water. Maintenance is minimal, but it's not zero. Scrub the inside of the olla with a brush. Mineral deposits from your water will build up on the clay walls. This is normal. It doesn't hurt anything, but it can reduce the seepage rate over time. A quick scrub fixes it. If your water is really hard, you might need to do this more often.
The outside of the olla?
The part buried in soil can get clogged with mineral deposits and organic matter. Every year or two, dig them up, give them a good cleaning, and rebury them. Again, not a huge deal, but it keeps them functioning at peak efficiency. One trick I've learned: add a capful of hydrogen peroxide to the water when you fill your olla. Not a lot, just a capful per gallon. It keeps algae from growing inside and provides a tiny oxygen boost to the roots. Some people swear by it. Others say it doesn't make a difference. Won't hurt anything either way. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. Drip irrigation exists. You can buy a drip system, hook it to a timer, and automate your watering completely. Why would anyone use ollas instead? Fair question. Drip irrigation has advantages. It's automated. It can cover large areas. It's scalable for big gardens or farms. The tubing degrades in sun and needs replacing every few years. Emitters clog with mineral deposits. Gophers and other critters chew through the lines. You need water pressure, which means access to a hose or irrigation line. And it's not cheap. A decent drip system for even a small garden runs a couple $100. Larger gardens, you're at thousands. Ollas have none of those problems. No moving parts. No electricity. No timers. No maintenance beyond refilling and occasional cleaning. They last for years if you don't break them or freeze them, and the upfront cost is minimal. For a small garden, you might spend $50 on DIY ollas and be set for years. There's also something satisfying about using a system that's existed for 4,000 years. You're connecting with generations of farmers and gardeners who figured this out long before we had pumps and plastic and timers. It's a simple solution to a simple problem. Plants need water. Clay is porous. Put water in clay near plants. Done. I think we've overcomplicated gardening in the pursuit of convenience and technology. Don't get me wrong, technology has its place, But when a buried clay pot outperforms a $200 drip system in terms of efficiency and plant health, maybe we should pay attention to what our ancestors figured out. There's been a resurgence of interest in ollas over the last decade. Part of it is the permaculture movement. People looking for sustainable low-tech solutions. Part of it is water scarcity. California, Arizona, New Mexico, parts of Texas, they're dealing with serious drought. Water restrictions are common. People are looking for ways to grow food with less water. Ollas fit that perfectly. International development organizations are promoting ollas in developing countries for the same reason. Regions with limited water access, where drip irrigation isn't feasible because of cost or infrastructure. Ollas work. You can make them locally with local materials. No imported equipment. No dependence on technology that might not be repairable. Just clay pots and physics. There have been programs in India, Pakistan, Kenya, and parts of South America teaching farmers to use ollas. The results have been impressive. Crop yields increase because of consistent moisture. Water use drops dramatically. Women, who in many cultures are responsible for hauling water for irrigation, spend less time on that backbreaking work. It's a legitimate solution to food security in water-scarce regions. Back to your garden. Let's say you're convinced and want to try this. Start small. Make or buy 2 or 3 ollas and use them in one section of your garden. Compare the results to your conventionally watered plants. I'm willing to bet you'll see a difference within a few weeks. Healthier plants. Less time watering. Lower water bill. Once you see it work, you'll expand the system. The only downside to ollas is that they're not instant. You can't plant something today and have the olla system working at full capacity tomorrow. It takes time for roots to grow toward the olla. 2 to 3 weeks usually. During that establishment period, you might need to supplement with conventional watering. But once the roots find the olla, you're set. There's also the aesthetic consideration. Some people don't like the look of terracotta pot necks sticking out of their garden. Fair enough. You can get creative with this. Paint them. Cover them with decorative caps. Some companies make ollas with nicer finishes specifically for this reason. Or just embrace the rustic look. I think they look fine. But I'm also the kind of person who thinks functional is beautiful. One last thing worth mentioning. Ollas work in combination with other water-saving strategies. Mulch is the big one. A good thick layer of mulch on top of your soil reduces evaporation even more. Mulch plus ollas is basically the ultimate water conservation combo. You're keeping moisture underground with the olla and preventing surface evaporation with the mulch. I've seen gardens in Arizona using this combination that water once every 10 to 14 days in summer. In Arizona, that's remarkable. Companion planting works well with ollas too. Plant things with similar water needs near the same olla. Don't put water-hungry tomatoes and drought-tolerant herbs around the same olla. Group plants appropriately, and let each olla serve a specific zone. This is just good garden design anyway, but it becomes especially important with ollas. So here's the bottom line. If you're tired of dragging hoses around every day, if your water bill makes you cry, if your plants seem to alternate between drowning and dying of thirst, ollas might be exactly what you need. They're cheap, they're simple. They work. They've worked for 4,000 years. They'll probably work for another 4,000. Give them a try. Make a couple this weekend. Bury them in your garden. Fill them up and see what happens. Worst case, you're out $20 and you learn something. Best case, you revolutionize how you garden and wonder why you didn't do this years ago. Thanks for watching. If you want more practical gardening advice that actually works, hit subscribe. More videos coming soon.